The 2018 NBA Draft received a lot of attention at the top, as it should have, but for this video, we're going to be moving away from that and actually outside of the lottery completely to look at 5 players who I think have star potential, and we're going to start with recent Atlanta Hawks draft pick out of Maryland, Kevin Huerter, a shooting guard who, to me, garners some comparisons to Warriors player Klay Thompson. With his size at 6'7", and the fact that he's almost guaranteed to be one of the 2 best shooters in this entire draft class. And what's funny is, the results are similar when these two shoot it, but the form is not too far off either. The comparison between Huerter and Klay can be kind of eerie sometimes. If we take a deeper look into Kevin, in his 2 seasons in college, he shot basically 40% from outside while shooting about 5.5 three-pointers a game, all while showing an ability to hit any kind of three-pointer he wanted. Some were contested shots with a guy in his face from a foot or 2 behind the three-point line. His size and release allows him to get a lot of these shots off pretty easily, but he's also really good at just coming off of screens, finding a way to get himself open. But he's not just a one-dimensional player. He's actually shown some real abilities of going off the dribble, to where I think he's not just going to be a spot shooter in the NBA. I think he could actually be a well-rounded offensive player. And defensively, because of his size and length, I think he's got a chance to be pretty okay there as well. Now, it'll make sense for him to probably gain a few pounds just to have a bit more of a chance against NBA perimeter players, but the foundation's there, man, if you ask me, for Kevin Huerter. And when you look at the Hawks also selecting Trae Young, they could end up having one of the best shooting backcourts in the NBA in a few seasons, as these two could lead Atlanta to having a pretty electric offense. Next, we are going to go to Lonnie Walker, who was drafted by the San Antonio Spurs. And for his sake, I hope Greg Popovich is around for a few more seasons, because I think that's the perfect coach for Lonnie. Because while I think the natural gifts are there, his game is a bit rough around the edges. His athleticism is a bit above average, I would say, given his size of only 6'4". But he's also got some real scoring potential as well. His stats may not jump out at you from his 1 season in Miami, only about 12 points a game. But towards the second half of the season, when he was asked to take on more of a scoring load, for the most part he was able to do it. He had himself about 7 games over 15 points, which for college, when it comes to box score numbers, I would say is pretty impressive. The dude gets to the rim. He can beat a lot of defenders off the dribble. Hopefully that translates into the NBA. His finishing ability is pretty intriguing combined with that athleticism. The problem with Lonnie is he's not the most natural playmaker, and sometimes his shot selection can be a bit shaky. But again, the Spurs and Popovich should do a great job of catching up Lonnie's IQ to his natural abilities. And I think the 3-guard combination that San Antonio now has built for themselves with DeJounte Murray, a player who could be one of the best defenders in the NBA, and like Lonnie, his athleticism is pretty exciting as well. DeMar DeRozan, who is going to be leading the Spurs in scoring for the foreseeable future, and someone who I'm also very excited to see play under Popovich, because I think we could see more creative offense than just DeRozan isolations all the time. And then you put Lonnie into that mix. I'll admit the outside shooting may end up being a problem, but for right now, it seems pretty good if you ask me. We're going to go to another great head coach, Brad Stevens, and his Celtics had the 27th pick in the recent draft, and they went with Robert Williams out of Texas A&M, a player who can jump out of the gym at the center or power forward positions, probably the center spot, although his 6'9" frame is maybe a little alarming. But his athleticism, rim protection, and potential to roll to the basket reminds me a lot of Clint Capella. And if he's going to get to that level, it's going to be because of his physical profile. A 40-inch vertical leap, a 7'5" wingspan, an alley-oop target for days, and if you're not careful around the basket, decent chance that he's going to end up dunking on your head. All of this can translate to the defensive side of the floor as well, where his shot blocking was a real thing. However, there are still some fears with Robert, mainly his character, his discipline on and off the court. I hope that now that he is a Celtic and he is in a really strong culture full of young players, that's the kind of thing that could allow him to get to that next level, because the on-floor talent is unquestionable. It's just a matter of if he can figure it all out. Next, we're going to look at a player who could end up being the Washington Wizards' second real playmaker next to John Wall, and that is Troy Brown Jr., a 6'7" wing who is a way better playmaker and creator than you would expect for someone of his size and position. I see a lot of versatility offensively with Troy. I think he's someone who can be a bit of a threat in transition, where he can use his combination of size and speed to finish through and over a lot of NBA players. But as I mentioned before, his calling card is definitely his abilities to create for himself. He is fearless going to the basket. His first step oftentimes reminds me of someone who should be about 3 or 4 inches shorter than he actually is. And then because of that tall frame, it's kind of difficult to contest the guy's shot around the rim, right? He's also got some decent creativity down there in terms of floaters, scoop shots, and also a very good cutter. Something that I think is overlooked by a lot of NBA prospects nowadays. But I think his number one trait is still his playmaking ability. I hope the Wizards do more with him than just sit him in the corner, because when you see some of the crisp passes that he's made, whether it's in college or the summer league, when he's had the opportunity to do it, this could be someone who's leading NBA offenses at some point in his career. Maybe not the first few seasons, but down the road, sure. The question with him is the outside jumper. His percentages in college were rough, and a lot of scouts say that his form is inconsistent. It looks different almost every time he shoots it. That's the only thing holding him back, because besides that, I see a tall guy who can handle the basketball, make his teammates better, and potentially be an Andre Iguodala sort of player, but he would have to make some decent strides on defense for that one. And finally, a player that the 76ers eventually acquired, as they had to trade for him, Zaire Smith, who may be the most athletic player in this draft, someone who is going to rely a bit on Ben Simmons to make plays for him this season. But that's okay, because with Zaire, the main thing you look at is his defense, where I think he could end up being one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. His height isn't doing him all the favors in the world because he's 6'4", but he's got the instincts and the tenacity and the strength. And then I think with him, it's a matter of where can he get to on offense. I kind of get an Avery Bradley vibe from him, where he may not be a natural offensive player, but he's good enough right now, combined with a few years of effort, to where it'll be good enough with his defense to actually make him one of the better two-way players in the league. So we have Zaire, we have Kevin Huerter, who could be more than just a shooter, Lonnie Walker, who may end up being a real offensive option for the San Antonio Spurs, Robert Williams, who's going to need some work on his discipline, but has all the potential to be a big guy for the Celtics. And then finally, Troy Brown Jr., someone who I would not be surprised to learn used to be a point guard before going through a growth spurt. Also, I'm going to mention Mo Wagner, if for no other reason than just so Laker fans won't get mad at me. You guys got LeBron, okay? You'll be fine.